Hey ratbags, it's Jade. Yesterday we saw the preview of what is going to be Grounded's final update. I gave a recap of the live stream. We watched it all together. Over 300 of you ratbags checking out the PAX East showcase where they revealed New Game Plus and a lot more. Like I said, I did do a recap. I thought it was pretty decent, but I think there's a few things I might have missed, and I definitely want to go over stuff in more detail. Also give my opinion about New Game Plus a bit more. And yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below after you've watched the video. But first things first, some people don't even know what New Game Plus means, and I guess unless you've played a lot of Dark Souls games, maybe it isn't as obvious. But I feel like it is a common known thing now. It's in so many RPG games, you see it in a lot of indie games and roguelikes, as well as just open world adventure games like Spider-Man. So let's start with that. New Game Plus will be that you'll have everything you've got, at least in this version in Grounded, and yes, creatures will spawn and they'll be more tougher. All creatures will probably be a little bit more chunkier, but these infused ones are going to be what makes it a bit different, so you're not just fighting tankier enemies. Other games do this as well. Generally though, a lot of them will just make enemies a bit harder to hit or do more damage, and you might get some extra rewards as you progress through it again. I'd say in the last few years, maybe the most famous cases of New Game Plus are games like the Dark Souls series. And you may find that the environments might change slightly, or the way that you do things might mix up a little bit. But you normally get to keep all your unlocks, all your gear, equipment and items possibly from your previous run. And that's no different with Grounded. Your base is going to be fine. You'll keep all of your weapons, your items, all the loot, all the resources you've gathered. But what's going to change is that once you activate the doorway after defeating the bosses of the Broodmother, the Was Queen and the Mantis, as well as completing the Mixer, that's when things will go to the next stage. And it doesn't look like there's any kind of limit on it. Shout out to Apex for this screenshot posted in Discord. It showed that alongside day 15, you can see we've also got 2 written in red. And we do think that this is going to be the signal that you're obviously in a New Game Plus. And then this will increase to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, no matter how many times you want to restart and play again a New Game Plus version of Grounded. So that's what the fully yoked New Game Plus is going to be. It's going to not just be making enemies tankier, they're getting new abilities, there's going to be random chances of different types of enemies spawning now, whole new way to upgrade and get past the current gear set that we have, the max level of 9, and that is what New Game Plus is. Kind of hard to see in the dark from the footage that was shown off at PAX East, but the sandbox has turned from red to yellow. And we know, as I covered this in the first video, that things like the tree leaves are going to change colour. So things in the environment will change, including the packaging and branding. The bosses are going to spawn, they're going to be infused with their new abilities, and so you are going to have to complete and do the laboratories once more. We know they're randomising the lot of the raw science and the milk molars, so you can keep levelling up your character that way too, and it will be in different positions this time. And not all enemies are necessarily going to become massively OP. It does look like every creature will have a small increase in power and damage, but the infused ones, they're the ones that are going to be really hard and tough to beat, and they've got a random chance of happening. You might do one run and find a bunch of wolf spiders that have been infused. You might do another run and it will be instead weevils. We're not too sure if it's set in stone each time you do a New Game Plus, whether or not them creatures are going to remain that way. Like if you kill them and then you've got to wait a few days for them to respawn, will they respawn as regular creatures or are they going to respawn as infused? According to Discord as well, this has always been part of Wendell's plan. This isn't a omniscient thing. Wendell has said that he wanted to experiment with infusing raw science with himself and or other creatures. So that's New Game Plus. Let's start covering the stuff that we may have missed yesterday. So I did recount and say that there's going to be ways now that to get different elemental types, different candies, so that you can have a sour katana. We know there's going to be new weapons as well, like the Wallopino, as well as possibly the Ant Scepter. But I was under the impression that just regular weapons would just be able to be augmented. But it does look like they're going to have new names. So like a sour battle axe normally is now called a fresh edge when it's made with fresh mints. The sour katana is not just a katana, it's now a katananga. These are only small little differences and changes, and I guess it's going to help separate the weapons. So yes, obviously they are the same weapons with just their new things applied, but you can see there it did say still spicy katana when it was picked up, not the spicy katanga. But definitely Fresh Edge was new to me, that was shown off in the actual stream yesterday. And it's been pointed out that a lot of things seem to be moving around bread. The bread symbol for the New Game Plus. Then we've got things that are made with flour, like waffles, cones, and crinkles. I mean, to be honest, it is what's in the raw science when you really take a look at it. The crinkles, the waffles, and I guess the cones. But what relevance does it all have to do with either bread or flour or pastry? But these three trinkets, the cones, the crinkles and waffles, drop from enemies, and they'll have a random stat on it that you can use, obviously, in your trinket slot. So this one's actually got two. It had the final stamina surge, and then it had the summon crit for your pet. And the creatures, the infused creatures, will drop these, and yeah, you can choose to use them or smash them up and use them to go ahead and use for crafting some higher tier gear. Next up is the free choices that we get to make when we come across one of the Ant Queens. 3 Ant Queens, in fact. We've been told they are not bosses. There isn't necessarily any new boss fights. So the idea is that you either poison them, quickly get maybe pieces to build a scepter, befriend them, get access then to your own baby pet ant. And regardless, it does look like you'll be able to steal the hormone that you can get, the pheromone I should say, from the ants. But the third option was the one that I kind of glossed over or missed out on. The first one we can see is the tasty donut sando, the 5 Ant Queen's favourite food, so that's the friendly option. Favourite food, but laced with deadly poison, and it's the third option that I assumed would just be a way of the game choosing for you what option you'd have. But it does look like it is going to be a new food, and what is it actually going to do? This screenshot was taken during the build where they were using the dev build, and obviously there's a lot of stuff here that will never come to the game, so don't get overexcited. I've covered this in multiple videos over the years. They've explained that their dev world that they normally have their dev build to do stuff on often has a huge amount of stuff that was just prototyped, never added properly to the game. So we've gone over this before. It's what's confused a lot of people. It's what way we always thought that other stuff would arrive in the game and never did. It was the first iterations. It was just the testing. However, it does look like it's been updated with all of the new stuff that's coming as part of this update. And what's interesting is the black ant pieces here, which do look like they might be slightly infected. I mean, we're only really gauging that from the middle ant soldier piece here, which seems to have very similar kind of white texture and that little antenna with the ball on the end of it, like a lot of the other infected creatures can have. Could this mean that we have an option for spreading even more infection around the yard, and it might be ants that are now infected? Certainly the rest of the black ant pieces do look very different. It's almost got like a yellow speckle on the body, and then the head has obviously got a red eye. So that third option might be something to do with triggering whether or not you want infected creatures or infected ants roaming around as well, just to add even more difficulty. Next up, we've got the brand new ooze. Remember, this is going to be stuff that drops from enemies maybe, or it's going to be something that we can actually get by condensing down some of them trinkets, if I've got that right. And we know that we've got to defeat some of the regular bosses in the game to make New Game Plus a thing. But it does look like there's particular drops from the bosses that will result in this particular ooze. You can see here we've got the Broodmother ooze, we've got the Mantis ooze, and then we've got the Wasp Queen ooze. But of course, what is that next to it? That looks to me like it is the infected Broodmother, or maybe it's just an infused spider, and that's the ooze drop that you'll get from it. We are assuming we don't need to kill the infected Broodmother to gain access to New Game Plus. It is just the first 3 regular bosses. No Schmectar, no obviously taking on the Mant, or even the Assistant Manager, because they have always been kind of classed as side bosses or optional bosses. Apart from the Mant, what you do have to do to get through the rest of the game. So I'm a little bit surprised it's not included as part of this, but maybe because it's already been fused. That's the idea that, as I said earlier, the science behind infusing different body parts and stuff to make the Mant, that maybe it's already had some of the raw science infused with it. So, yes, it looks like we will have an infected, fused Broodmother. Also something overlooked was the idea that yes, this ant will be something that will actually fight for you, hopefully. That's what we're assuming anyway. Maybe because it's a baby it won't, that's the other thing to contend with, but I've never really discussed this. Are we going to have a first pet that can actually take on other creatures? I don't think so. I reckon it would be simply making the other pets just not worth having unless you really just wanted them for the aesthetic. I mean, they are all pretty useless still in this point of the game, but yeah, I think it would be a bit too much having this pet baby ant as something that can do damage against creatures. And if we've already got a baby pet ant, why do we need pheromones? Well, it looks like there was once back in the day a bomb that you could throw made out of the pheromone that would confuse ants, and it was literally called the Ant Confuser. Maybe it'll end up still being something like that we can not have to bother fighting ants because we can use this particular item, or I'm hoping it'll be like map wide where we can activate and maybe place something down and that will stop ants from attacking us, certain types of ants. We all know it's super annoying in the upper yard having the fire ants attack. But it could also just mean it is the scepter, it's the top part of the scepter, as it does have that same sort of kind of bluish colour. And if the scepter was meant to summon ants to fight, then that would be a good shout. That's how you actually do it with the pheromone. Does it look like things are going to be considerably more when it comes to raw science, or maybe these are going to just be placed a little bit more, I guess, banked? Because look at this, 1500 raw science. That is far much more than we get at the moment with the 500 big pods or the 100 smaller ones. So either they're not going to be as common as regular raw science is. Obviously, we don't know if the regular raw science will always be in the same spots as well. Likewise with milk molars, we don't know if the original ones are going to be all in the same spot. We do know that raw science and additional milk molars will be randomized in their location. Another one from my vaults at taking a look at cut content was the rugs. In the past, the rugs were literally these huge mite square things, or the bee fuzz one, and every time you used to spawn them in, they would often crash the game. Obviously, I found a way to access the older types of games, which I've done in the past, so go and check out that video if you want to try it out on Steam. But yeah, this is what the rugs used to look like. Absolutely a huge improvement, and it kind of makes sense what they look like now. We've got the burgle one here, obviously nice and bright. Then the old weevil, and you can see the bee one. Like I said, I didn't really focus on this too much in yesterday's video, but rugs is always good, and we're presuming we're going to get some more decoration pieces. Are we going to get any more substantial build pieces? I'm not sure. What use would we really need with some of this? I am kind of hoping we get raids from the infected, or not the infected, the infused. That'd be pretty cool. And hopefully, yes, something that should be on the docket is extra defense pieces to protect against maybe infused raids. And here on the rug, showing the raw science, you can actually see a lot of the crinkles and I'm guessing some of the cones. Maybe not so much waffles, but they're the kind of fragments that make up a lot of the raw science. And a few comments are saying that the jalapeno is simply just the mint mace. It's definitely got a different shape. It's not just the mint mace actually reskinned with a new colour. It's definitely got something different. Now, I did assume that this would be maybe a tier 4 item. They said tier 4 stuff is coming to the game, but you can clearly see it's still a tier 3 weapon. And that makes sense. Anything that's brand new will obviously be maybe still tier 3. They want players to experience some of these new weapons still. And that still goes for the Sour Katanga as well. That is still technically a tier 3 weapon. Yoking station does look like it's going to be exactly the same as an anvil. You'll be able to upgrade it with just the regular brittle whetstones or mighty globs, etc. It's a bit of a shame they didn't have something already prepared to show us how to infuse with the new materials. So that's a question that needs to be answered. I would presume with New Game Plus, all the rocks will spawn again in exactly the same positions. I'm hoping it's going to be maybe regenerating rocks this time, not just for one playthrough, but maybe we'll keep getting them respawn, as it is a bit of a pain trying to get max weapons. It's probably the big criticism I've got of Grounded, and I don't have many, is the fact that it does take a long time. If you really wanted to go ahead and max out all the weapons, all the armor, it's incredibly grindy and just quite frankly boring, killing bugs, the same bugs over and over again. At least now in New Game Plus, there's going to be variety and differences in that. But if we still have to rely on getting a lot of the regular rocks, there has to be other ways to get them. And yes, this is a new candy coming to the game, or is it simply just an amalgamation changing up the branding? Spice-O-Topes, I don't know, I think this is still just another name for spicy sweets, just like obviously the worm sours are called that. Maybe the sour sweets are going to have a red colouring now to look more like spicy. It's going to be interesting whether or not we should start stocking up on candies now. That's going to be one of my things I'm going to be talking about in a new video, how to get ready for the next update. but I still think it's definitely worth having a lot of the old candies around. So there we go. There's the things I think I missed maybe in the first recap video and just a little bit more discussion about it. What do I really think about New Game Plus? As I said in the live stream, I think it's amazing. I think, again, a big criticism grounded from some people is that a static map, much like other games like The Forest or Conan Exiles, does become pretty boring. Other games like Ark have lots of maps available to go and explore, and so that cures the kind of boredom that sets in from exploring the same places over and over. While Grounded would never maybe be full procedural generation, this is the closest we can kind of get to it, and I think it does the job amazingly. Being how to have different enemies to fight on different runs now in New Game Plus, slightly new materials to gather and harvest, and even if it is very similar mechanics in terms of gathering bug parts to go ahead and upgrade, I don't see anything wrong with that. That's like a core loop of Grounded. This might be the main feature of the next update, the fully yoked. If it is and there's not much else, it's just small quality life things or some small little additions, I'll be okay with that. I am sad it's coming to the end of Grounded's time. I'm going to talk about this maybe in a history of Grounded video that I'm working on. But yeah, Grounded's meant a lot to me. It's been one of my most successful games I've covered alongside others in the years gone by. And absolutely, it's just been amazing being part of a community and seeing people's questions and excitement and being part of it pretty much every single step of the way. With the PlayStation and Switch launches, I'm really feeling like it's just the wrong time to have a last update. I do hope they come back like Terraria, and I do hope they decide to do one more. 1.4 is a kind of dodgy number as well. Come on, Obsidian. It needs to be 1.5 at least. Even if it's like 6-8 months down the line, I still think it'd be great to come back and have some more content for it. Maybe to coincide finally with the animated TV show, if that is ever coming out. I've seen a lot of questions and people saying they want other stuff to come. They want to go inside the house. They want to go inside the shed. It's all been explained to death. Go and watch some of my videos if you want to see why, how, the reasons the devs have decided not to do that stuff. Some of it is technical limitations, and we know now because maybe the Switch was influencing that too, not just the Xbox One. And some of it was just down to the devs realising it just wasn't fun. It didn't add enough value to the game for what they wanted, and they could maybe save some of them ideas for Grounded 2. I've seen other people asking for stuff like mods, and I'm just like, really? Are we really having this conversation still? Grounded is a huge console game. Yes, it's maybe sold close to 2 million copies on Steam, but it only has an average of around 7 to maybe 15,000 players at any one time, depending on updates. The biggest it's had is around 30,000 players. It's done good numbers, but it is a Xbox or console focused game. The devs have been pretty adamant they never really wanted to focus on adding any kind of mod system to the game, and why would they when 90% of the player base plays on console? There are some games that are getting mods nowadays. We've seen with Ark they've got a mod system, but then mod systems are generated by revenue. You've seen from Overwolf that they've started charging for some of the mods that are on the Ark Overwolf system. Other games like Mud Spinners or maybe even Skyrim, well, some of them games are pretty simple, or in Skyrim's case, pretty old. It cost millions apparently to get that mod system ported and ready for Xbox and PlayStation. And Grounded just isn't that kind of game. It doesn't sell microtransactions, it doesn't have battle passes or season passes, so it doesn't generate that much revenue to warrant the ability to go ahead and invest in systems like this. I am giving an education here because I do see it a lot, and hopefully people can actually listen. You can go and check it out and look up what I'm saying yourself. It is true. Mods aren't really a big deal for most players because they only play on console, and it's hard to get lots of these mods on consoles. The playgrounds and what people are building are amazing. I feel like some people complaining about mods really haven't tried playgrounds out themselves to see what is capable. We've seen cookie clicker games, we've seen huge amount of choice in RPGs and parkour adventure maps. And that's something everyone can create. PlayStation, Switch, Xbox, another reason why mods are not going to be a focus ever. Mods are great, don't get me wrong, I enjoy playing with them sometimes, but to me they're never the most important thing. And at this stage of the game, people are asking for it. Or additions like going into the house or going back into the shed, you just got to keep up with what the devs have said in the past because they've clarified exactly why or what they're not going to have added to the game. Enjoy Grounded for what it has been. One of the best survival games going, one of the best in early access with constant updates, really communicative talking to the community and people playing their game, never doing anything dodgy or stupid like microtransactions or battle passes, just a solid game made to get feedback from players and then still releasing content after 1.0. I am sad. I do want one more update, but if it's not going to be, then I've absolutely enjoyed the ride and feel privileged that I've been able to make content for the game and enjoyed it so much. There we go, ratbags. I'll see you for more videos previewing the new update. I've got lots still to come. Until next time, bye-bye.